In a world where the direct hit was buffed by Valve, sentries are a dying breed.
Sentry down!
One heavy must rise up and take back what is rightfully his. Only one weapon can help him on this quest. He must use the Brass Beast. This summer, witness its power and strength. Oh, who am I kidding? That heavy isn't gonna do shit. I mean, the Brass Beast? Seriously? He'd have a better chance of winning the round by playing Fat Scout. But why is the Brass Beast so bad? I mean, it's one of the coolest looking weapons in the game, and a weapon that sacrifices mobility for damage sounds like a really interesting concept on paper. But what went wrong? That is what we will be looking at in this video. Welcome to the start of my new series, investigating some of the worst weapons Team Fortress 2 has to offer, and exploring why they never reached their potential. Today's episode will be focusing on one of Heavy's most distinct and overlooked weapons. This is the tragedy of the Brass Beast. When you first see the Brass Beast, the first thing that will catch your eye is its design. It looks like one of those old Gatling guns that wouldn't look out of place in an 1800s battlefield. The brass highlights make it, in my opinion, one of the most badass weapon models in all of TF2. But before I explain the problems with the Brass Beast, we first need to take a look at its stats. It deals 20% more damage than stock, and also provides the heavy with 20% more damage resistance when the gun is spinning or if the heavy is below 150 health. Meanwhile, the player moves 60% slower and it also revs up 50% slower. So it seems simple. It will make the heavy even more of a tank than he already is, deal more damage, and take less damage at the cost of your movement and speed. However, this doesn't do the job for more experienced players. Especially as a heavy, players learn to value accuracy over pure damage, and the Brass Beast immediately falls behind in that category. If we compare it to the Tomislav, which has a tighter bullet spread as well as not having the movement penalty, it can instantly outclass the Brass Beast. Compare these two clips of me trying to kill a scout that is trying to fight me at close range. As you can see, the Tomislav has a much easier time killing the scout even though it does less damage. The tighter spread and better options in terms of mobility makes a huge difference. Just from an initial glance, you can tell that I can easily track the scout without much trouble. Meanwhile, the Brass Beast feels much more clunky to use in close range combat compared to the Tomislav. The scout has an easier time dodging my bullets, and it is nearly impossible for me to strafe the scout's attacks. And in defense of the Brass Beast, it was never envisioned as being a close range weapon, rather a mid to long range minigun, especially with the damage buffs. However, like most games, TF2 has a meta, and the Brass Beast never fits into the casual meta because of its shortcomings. The Tomislav or stock are just inherently better options. However, there is one area where the Brass Beast does shine, and is in fact the best weapon option for heavy. How could I make a video about the Brass Beast without discussing man versus machine? It's pretty safe to argue that Team Fortress 2's PvE mode is very different from casual TF2. You and 5 other players team up to defend your base against waves of robots and is an excellent addition to the game. I'm of the opinion that the Overwatch vs TF2 argument has been done to death by this point, but looking at the recent state of Activision Blizzard, it's pretty clear that Valve came out on top with their PvE mode.
No.
But crap, you still have to pay MVM so you can't even criticize Blizzard.
That's a pretty common criticism of MVM, however, it's only partially true. You can play all the missions for free in boot camp, but you won't receive any of the exclusive rewards. And yes, the paid version of MVM is essentially gambling with an extra step, and the ethics of microtransactions to access a game mode is certainly questionable, But I digress. This video is about the Brass Beast, not the state of modern gaming. Like a lot of PvE games, MVM does fall into the trap of having a tightly controlled meta. There is little room for experimentation with weapons and upgrades, but I don't think that it holds back the mode too much. And you guessed it, the Brass Beast is generally the accepted meta weapon for heavy MVM. No longer do you have to worry about the decreased accuracy and movement, because if you sit beside a dispenser with a medic and hold mouse 1, you've already mastered playing heavy in MVM. And yes, I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but the main idea stands. Unlike regular TF2, MVM does value damage over accuracy. Because the robots usually come in hordes, even with the bullet spread, you are almost guaranteed to hit something. And with certain upgrades, the Brass Beast's downsides become a mere afterthought. And I think MVM shows us the Brass Beast we could have had, a human sentry. And some of the most addicting gameplay when you are mowing down hundreds of robots over and over again with the Brass Beast, and truly brings out the best it has to offer. It makes me think that if it got certain buffs, it could be a great defensive weapon to hold back the other team. It's such a simple idea, but when it's at its best, it can be such a powerful weapon. The weapon upgrades for the Brass Beast certainly sway my views on the weapon, and if we took the MVM version of the Brass Beast to casual, it would be horribly unbalanced. However, the upgrades were never created with normal game balance in mind. I mean, just look at the Gas Passer. Horrible in casual, but overpowered in MVM. And if Valve were ever to start doing weapon balancing again, I'd love to see them buff the Brass Beast by taking some of the ideas from its MVM counterpart. Perhaps increasing its firing rate and giving the heavy more damage resistance could finally let the Brass Beast live up to the potential it has. And that potential is what makes its current state so disappointing. Currently, the Heavy is caught in a spot where only 2 of his primaries are actually viable to use in a more competitive sense. As I said earlier, if you want to be a truly good Heavy, you either use Stock or the Tomislav. And many of the other classes in the game also fall into this category of only a few of their weapons actually being used by players taking the game seriously. And I think this hurts TF2. It prides itself on variety, and I'd love to see them lean more heavily into that idea. I know competitive TF2 is broken, but if it were ever fixed, it'd be awesome to play it and have multiple options to choose from as each class. If you've ever watched competitive TF2 tournaments that use the Highlander format, the loadouts and classes used are almost always the same. Adding that variety and unpredictability could really push TF2 as an entertaining esport to watch. If the Brass Beast were buffed and used the identity of a human sentry gun, it would be great for holding down points or defending their team's position. Maybe it even creates a new subclass that's like, the opposite of Fat Scout. Low mobility, but ridiculous damage output. I know that the competitive purists will disagree with me, but I want TF2 to embrace its wackiness. And with the potential the Brass Beast has, it shouldn't be relegated to a gimmick weapon. It deserves to be one of the best options for Heavy to choose from because he is the tank class in TF2. Give him a weapon that makes him one. The foundations are there, Valve. A few small changes would make this weapon a powerful one, but not unbalanced. I think the Brass Beast's downsides do fit nicely into the weapon's design. It offers a proper trade-off to the damage output. However, in its current state, the Brass Beast's positives are not enough to outweigh the downsides. Now, this doesn't only apply to the Brass Beast or Heavy. Each class and their weapons suffer from this problem of falling into the meta. It may sound like I'm ranting a little bit here, but I truly believe balancing out the weapon selection in TF2 would improve the game immensely. The flaw that ultimately kills the Brass Beast from being a mainstay in more Heavy's loadouts is not even its own fault. The Heavy has 2 options that are much easier and much more effective to use than the Brass Beast. It suffers from being too mediocre to be taken seriously in more competitive lobbies. Certain small tweaks to the weapon would make it a lot more viable as a defense option. Think of the Wrangler but for Heavy, perfect for holding down capture areas where the defensive team is being pushed back. And many other weapons in the game require just small tweaks that would finally push them into relevancy again. TF2 has so many different and unique weapon options, but we always see the same ones being picked over and over again. The Brass Beast is only one of many weapons in the game that are stuck in a tragic purgatory of mediocrity and irrelevance. Valve, let's change that and give these weapons the love they deserve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.